Have you ever considered taking your renovation game to the next level by adding a subdivision? This podcast is brought to you by our upcoming micro development intensive. Join us on Sunday, September 10, when we'll be deep diving into micro development, a strategy that can boost your profit and mitigate risk in your next renovation project. See real projects and be inspired by our guest speaker, Maggie Smith. Hear the ins and outs of microdevelopment firsthand from our students. Gain important accounting, town planning, and finance knowledge. Learn the step-by-step process. If they can do it, you can do it too. Book your place at sherenovates.com.au/events. See you there.
Welcome back to She Renovates. Today's episode, I have an absolutely delightful guest in Maggie Smith. Now, I'm going to read out her bio. While it's quite detailed, I think there's lots of touch points in this story that you may identify with. I think it's really important to sort of have a diet of inspiration and be seeing and aware of what other women are doing, because it sort of generates this, if she can, I can. And so that's the intention of today. So Maggie is an inspirational Brisbane-based female property developer and has grown her property success from small beginnings to having her own successful development company, Walkabout Properties. Maggie first arrived in Australia as a teenager after dropping out of school and returned many years later to call Australia home. She worked for many years in high-end hospitality venues and fast-paced call centres for large corporate organisations, learning the importance of excellent customer service. Maggie then went into the IT industry as a software test manager for the finance, insurance and government organisations. But property has always been her passion, and with the realisation that all developers are not evil and it doesn't have to be a male-only environment, she set off on a journey of education and being the best developer she could be. I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode as I talk to Maggie about how she has gone from her first uncertain steps to create a life in property that has far exceeded her expectations. Well, Maggie, it's really lovely to have you here. And while I know you've done some great things in property, I haven't really been privy to your project. So I'm looking forward to hearing about those. But before we do that, I'd love you to give me a little bit of a sort of the backstory. So, where did you begin and what brought you to here?
Sure. Thanks, Bernadette, for the invite. I guess just to clarify the whole going to Australia as a teenager. So, grew up in England, wasn't very happy, wasn't a happy teenager at all, was getting bullied, just didn't have a great time. So dropped out of school, didn't really go to school for quite a lot of the time. And, I was 15, they brought in the rules that parents have to send their kids to school. So my mum was getting into trouble. So she sent me to Adelaide to her sister. I think my aunt probably paid for me to come over, and I spent 6 months there watching Home and Away and Bold and the Beautiful and also going camping and fishing, because that's how they live their life. They work full time. And so didn't finish school. And I guess just to set the scene, I was before I became an entrepreneur, before I came into property, I saw that as such a failure. So, was running scared. So I went back home, 16. I then trained to be a chef because, to live in Australia, in my uneducated, you could be a chef or a hairdresser. Didn't want to play with people's hair, so decided I, would be a chef, and that didn't really work out for me, but ended up in the hospitality industry because I'm such a people person. So, was waitressing for many, many years. kind of always wanted to be the best of what I did. So worked my way up, then, ended up, I came back to Australia at 20 and travelled for a while, and then thought, better go home and get a job, a proper job, in, that I could make some money. I went into call centres again, so I can I can help people. And so every industry I've been in has been about helping people. Worked kind of up my way, and then ended up in an IT company, and very large organisation, and got into software testing. And going back to the story of leaving school with no qualifications, didn't sit a single exam. So I was in that industry, but I was running scared a lot of the time. But I was like, I'm here to be the best I can be, and that's probably been my trait, throughout my journey. Had a very inspirational mother who, we grew up very poor, and but my mum, she ended up running we lived in a pub. So I lived in a pub, grew up in a bar basically, and but kept telling me I could do whatever I wanted. Go and do whatever you want, go and be whoever you want to be, and would be, very much go and do this and go and do that. And she helped me buy my first property. So I was 23, I'd just come back from traveling, and she paid the deposit. It was probably her last, few $1,000. I bought the worst house, ever. It had to be gutted. I got my brother to help me renovate it, and and that doubled in value. And because my mum had a really strange life, that she'd married an entrepreneur very early and had this fabulous, wealthy lifestyle. And then, long story cut short, he died. The kind of money disappeared, and she ended up really poor with my dad. They both kind of lived in, I don't know what the word would be. They just never, my dad was also an entrepreneur. He had his own business, and he left his family. So they were just together, and then they had 2 kids at later life, like they were both 40, and my brother and I was a result of that. But my mum and dad and ourselves grew up very, very poor, but my mum also, gave me the go and do whatever you want. So it's kind of pushed me to get out of my comfort zone. I lived in London for a while, working in hotels, and then I came back to Australia to live. It's probably about 33, I think, when I came back here. Never gave up on my dream, just knew I had to, just keep working, and one day it would happen. So came to Australia. Loved that Australians love property. It's like, but couldn't buy anything here. I owned a house in England, which I ended up selling. So we could get deposit here. Yeah. This was in Sydney. We followed a couple of strategies. We were doing buy and holds, and I was just working and not wanting to be working, and wanted to do property full time. So, but full time to me was, I'll just renovate a house now and again and create a bit of money, and probably got a comfortable life, because we were both in IT, my husband and I. So we were earning good money. We had 5 investment properties at the time, and I was reading all these property magazines, but I didn't read the development section, because development was scary and, not what I could do, not somebody like me. So I skipped all those pages, but I would read and read, and then I got educated. I went to a seminar. I actually thought it was a renovation seminar, and because it was a lady who'd inspired me, who'd been a nurse, and she said, go and, I loved her energy. So I was like, I want what she's got. So, I went to this seminar, and the seminar was for 3 days, and I was waiting the whole time to learn about renovations. And they were talking about options. Sorry.
And it didn't happen?
Well, he kind of touched on, how much, 10%. I think it's 10% of the property value is your renovation, and you split it into this. And there was a few, square meter rates, but nothing, a bathroom might cost you 10 grand, or just simple. But during that time, it made me realize, there was a few people, ladies in the audience, made me realize that, the people in the room weren't, they were just normal people. There was nothing special about them. They were just women like me who wanted to do more. So that's when I went, right, I'm going to be a developer. I'm going to give up my story of, developers are evil, and, because they do get a bad rap. My view of developers, wasn't great. And it probably goes into that whole thought process of, rich people are evil, because I grew up poor. So I had that going on. I ended up signing up for a 3-day course, and so I went to the one day or the evening seminar, and then signed up for a 3-day course. It's with Young Ewan, and I became a developer, set my sights on, I'm finding a deal within 3 months, and just got into action. So, so that's kind of how it started, and a little bit about me.
Yeah. And so did you just do that course and then go out and do your first development, or did you have any coaching as well?
So I was committed. So at the time I was working, I was still in IT. I was a contractor, and I wanted to just find a deal. So I was committed to finding a deal, and I found a splitter. So it was a very simple, the most simplest strategy you can start. Excuse me. And I bought it. I bought it just before auction, and cash unconditional, didn't have the cash, had most of it, as in bank finance. And then, so I actually got into my first deal just after doing that course. However, I soon realized, my first phone call, I always tell this story, was to the surveyor. And he frightened the life out of me, because he said, you can't always split a splitter. And they were his words, and my stomach dropped. And I thought, I can't do this. Who do I think I am? I can't be a developer without, being supported. So then I joined a mentorship program and got mentored for probably about 5 years. And also worked, did a lot of personal development to help me become the person I am today. Because working on yourself and working, being supported and having a mentor is so important. So,
I think that I think there's a little bit of a misconception that sometimes goes around, that you find the thing that clicks, and then you're off and running, and I think there's no such thing as an overnight success. Like, behind every success story, there are years of, plugging away, getting also, because I do notice that, like, a lot of the women that we work with have done multiple programs, and it's like, isn't she fixed yet? No, it's that everything you do actually builds on what you already know. So, and I think sometimes there's a bit of guilt around maybe doing a few different things, but I don't know, I wouldn't like to be judged on the number of programs I've done. So I completely agree with you. So how did
I was going to say, I'd done programs previously to do with investing. And I'd done a renovation course as well, because one of the first things I realized is I had a really badly performing property, that because I was buying unrenovated houses because I was like, well, they need to be on bigger blocks and and be unrenovated, but I didn't know what to do with them. So I had to renovate this house myself and sell it myself in order to get out without losing a lot of money, basically, because I was very uneducated before I bought that house. So So yeah, I think education is key, but yeah, the support and the mentoring, hand-holding, if you want to call it that, is really, what is required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so as you know, at the School of Renovating, we are all about renovating, but we've had to develop various strategies in order to achieve the best outcome with our renovating. So now, like, we do a lot of work on joint ventures. We have quite a lot of our women doing joint ventures, and we also love micro development because you are able to capture that higher profit, but still using your renovating skills, because it's the renovating that gets us out of bed in the morning. We love that process. Have you used all those strategies like joint ventures and
Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So I basically left my job after my second deal, and the reason was because I was a contractor. I had to take it, and it was a full-on job. I had to take a contract for 6 months. So I ended up saying, right, I'm going to do 6 months. That's when I signed up to fully commit. I go, I'll give up my job and I'll go and find a deal and do a deal within that 6 months. If I manage it, then I will leave my job and not go back to the IT industry. If I can continue that. Sorry. So what was the question you asked me about? Oh, so the micro development. So my and joint venturing. So my second deal was a 1-2 subdivision where the house was on the corner and it had a block at the side. So I've done a number of renovations. I can't say renovations are my passion. I love seeing them at the end, and I've done a couple of Queenslanders and they're amazing. But I'm not the best renovator in the world, but it's a great strategy to be able to go, keep the house, renovate it. They're often run down. They've often been owned a long time and they sit on big blocks. So that second deal was a joint venture with my old boss who had just left work. So she was so excited. She loved property and she was like, I'll be your money partner. Or she actually got the mortgage for me. So we did it that. I did the work. I actually paid the cash. She had no cash, but she had serviceability. So it worked out perfectly. And I've done a few like that since.
So you must be a pretty good pitcher if you could pitch to your boss after your second project.
Yes. I mean, she could see my passion, the research, I guess, having worked with me and knowing that I want to be the best, my attention to detail is there. And, she was also a good friend over the last few years of that project. So I think she just had the trust in me that, it was going to work. It was a really great deal. So yeah, and the house wasn't too bad. It's so funny. I was like, right, it's a $10,000 renovation, and that's what we're doing. And of course, I had
How did that go, Maggie?
So I had no idea, but I did Sherry Barber's course after that.
Yeah.
And it blew out. I spent $15,000 and turned the whole house around because it wasn't, I sprayed the kitchen and, I just polished the floors and I painted it all myself. So I painted the outside myself, painted the inside. So I have a few funny stories about that first renovation, but having a joint venture partner, and then saying, oh, the reno, even though I was the one paying for the actual putting the money in, it was, it was like exposing your lack of knowledge to say my 10 grand reno is now, 50% more.
Yeah.
But no.
And so that's where, like, obviously having that level of trust with your partner is really important, is it? Because that's not that unusual. Like, stuff crops up all the time in projects, and
Definitely.
and if you're with someone who doesn't understand the process and is looking at you saying, well, you know, why is this cost blowing out? And, you know, that can be a cause of conflict and, you know, not a good outcome. So well done to you for being able to, I guess, foster that sense of trust in what you do.
Yeah.
So basically, you're an inspiration to many of the people listening here, because I know that many have the goal to leave their day job one day, and you have actually done that. And so how did you manage that transition? Because obviously you've got a job, and then you step out of that, and now you're doing a project which might take, you know, like if there's development aspect to it, it could take 8, 10, 12
Yeah.
months.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you manage, like, staying alive and keeping a roof over your head during that period of time and getting that job done?
So this was really difficult for me. I've never been reliant on anybody. You know, yes, I'm married, but not having, you know, it was the first time I didn't have an income for, you know, since I was 16. So it was really difficult to step out of that and not get paid. So yes, we could live on John's salary. So that was really good. That we could do that. And I could also go back into work at any point because, you know, as I say, I was a contractor and I knew I'd get a job if I needed to. So I guess I had that level of, you know, I can go back to work, but mindset wise, and it's a different ball game, you know, and even now, you know, getting paid once every year or 2 years is difficult. You know, you want to, the early days, you want to run back to your day job. So having that mentor, you know, to, you know, and my husband's also a coach, a property coach. So he, you know, having that person, that mentor to actually talk to somebody that knows what you're doing and can keep you from running away back to your day job, because that's what you want to do. So yeah, really important to be supported, you know, and just you know, hopefully your partner, if you have a partner, your partner will support you. If you are on your own, just make sure you've got, you know, that buffer that, you know, some people leave their job too early, I find. You know, they want to do property full time but have no momentum, whereas momentum is the key to staying in deals. You know, and I've stayed in deals longer than I should have done, because if I want to be a property developer, and I couldn't even say I wanted to be a property developer for some time, because it was like I was just an imposter. I was, you know, I used to say I'm just a little developer if I said the word developer at all. So yeah, just having that support around you, and you know, the deal I held on to longer, you know, I realized it was because if I wasn't in a deal, I wasn't a property developer.
Wow.
So, yeah, so and that was true. You know, as I say, I've done a lot of personal development as well to understand how I am, because, you know, yes, your subconscious will do lots of things and you'll go, you know, oh, I can't sell blocks of land. And I tell people today, you know, yes, it might be more difficult than it used to be, but you can still sell blocks of land, you know. But sometimes it's definitely it was that second one, because it was like, as long as I stay in a deal, I can be a developer. So as long as I was in that deal, I couldn't sell that block of land, because I wouldn't be a developer until I secured the next one. Whereas at that time, I needed the headspace to get rid of the block of land in order to free me up. So it's not you know, you can't go from 0 deals of properties to, you know, to running 4 or 5 projects in 1 year. You can't do that. It's mindset wise, it's, you know, you're very lucky if you can, you know, but most of the time you are what shall I say? You just, it's quite stressful. If you've not done something before, it's quite a stressful time.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's difficult because, if you do renos, you could say they're difficult, but, for people that like renovating, they're not.
And I think that if it's your sort of mojo, you take the stress in your stride. Like I'm fully aware of the level of stress in a project, but I don't actually really consider it when I'm going into a project because it's just what I do. And I think that's probably the same for you. Now, I'm really excited that you're going to be one of the speakers at our Micro Development Mastery Day. And one of the reasons I asked you to come on is so that our Wonder Women will, and Wonder Blokes, I need to stop, will have some idea of what an absolute rock star you are and what like really what you've achieved, because that's, they need that inspiration to keep moving to the next level. And I know that you will talk about your projects in more detail then, but can you just give us a little bit of an idea of really what the volume of projects you've done, the types of projects you do on a regular basis, 1 a year, 2 a year,
so I guess for me, if I look back, every deal was a little bit more complicated. So a splitter to a subdivision, so 2 lots, 1 title, 1 lot. And then I moved a house, because sometimes the houses don't sit in the place that you want them to be, and renovated that and subdivided. So always subdivision. I did, so I went from a 1-2 straightforward to a backlax, which has its more challenges. People just think it's another subdivision. It is, but it's just still a learning. So I just took step by step. My projects got better, got more and more, because I always want to learn. So, or more and more involved. And then I landed a 7-lot subdivision just at the start of COVID, when nobody really wanted to buy anything. It was a perfect time to buy. So I did that. So at the time before that, I was doing 1 project a year. So for the first probably 4 or 5 years, I was doing 1 project a year and learning my skill and just getting really knowledgeable and learning different strategies. So, we built a mini boarding house so we could keep that. I've been learning about NDIS for the last 2.5 years, because that's quite a complex area to be in. And at the moment, I'm in 3 large subdivisions. One is a 2x5, where I'll renovate 2 houses and create 3 blocks at the bottom of the garden. There's like another street that I'll build a little bit of a street, continue the little cul-de-sac, and create 3 lots. So yeah, and the others are land subs where we can build NDIS for people with mental health, because that's the problem I want to solve. Yeah.
Awesome. So you're tying what you're doing into your sort of what's the word? Social conscience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so can we just step back to momentum? I just wanted to unpack that a bit more. What feeds into momentum? What is it that you do in order to build that? So I was thinking about you. Sorry, I was thinking about like building your network. That would be one thing.
Definitely, yes. Yeah. I guess, yes, surround yourself with, like-minded people. And yeah, just keep connected with people, keep your eye on what's going on in the market. Don't get too caught up in the deal you're in. Because if you think about when you find a site, how happy you are. It's amazing. And, so from an enrollment point of view, from securing your next site, talking to agents, once you're you know, think about renovating. Say you can renovate a house in 4 to 6 weeks or whatever, if you're quick at them. So when you've got your first reno, when you've got a reno, if you're excited about that reno because it's all new and shiny, you know, you're telling everybody you're amazing, you know, your energy is high. If you're then talking to agents and telling them what you're up to, they're going to want to actually sell you a property, find you a property, because they want to work with you. Whereas, you know, you're at the back end of it, even if even if it's gone, so even if it's gone well, then you still might be, you know, really excited. If you're in the middle of it, then, you know, you might just be tired. You might be tired at the end of it. So your energy levels might not be as, you know, high. So it's keeping that energy level, you know, by going, right, I've got this deal, I'm going to look for my next. Like I got 3 deals in about 6 weeks from just doing some work on my headspace, looking at you know, like say, looking at what do you want to achieve and being really committed to that, instead of, you know, falling into the story of there's no deals, I can't find it, it's hard. If you think like that, that's your energy level, that is how you'll come across, and you'll get exactly what you're saying. It's my only tip to people is, keep the momentum when you know, when you're happy and excited, and
I couldn't agree more, because I think your energy level is so critical to everything you do, to your relationships, to your work, to your results. And I always think, like, I am doing a small development at the moment, but generally they're renos, and I always think of the projects a little bit like being pregnant. When you first got the project, you're over the moon. You're like, everything's wonderful. And then the reality sets in, and, you know, like getting the little problems. And by the end of it, like that last 2 weeks in a project seriously is like right now. And you think, oh my God, why am I doing this? But then as soon as it's looking beautiful, it's on the market, or it's sold, or it's got a tenant in it, it's like, oh, it wasn't so bad, you know. And so, I think that's really important to remember and pace yourself, so you don't sort of go down into a hole too much. So tell me, do you fund all your projects yourself?
No, I don't. I don't have buckets of cash. I do get investors for some of them. And as I say, I do joint ventures as well. So it just enables you to do multiple deals. I also look at different ways of funding. So using private funding, you know, using the commercial for the larger deals, the commercial banks, but also using retail banks, because if you've got the serviceability to do it. And that's why partnering with people is handy, so that you can you know, do multiple projects and share the love with your investor, you know, with your joint venture partner. I guess it's just key to getting those roles and responsibilities, you know, sorted out up front.
And so, you know, that's another scenario where I think it is a bit like getting married, because you do need to set out the ground rules really well and spend time on the relationship, because you sort of got that layer of complexity on top of your project. So have you got any tips for managing the relationships in joint ventures?
I guess, you know, find out who you connect with. You've got the same values. So, you know, integrity is one of my, you know, highest value, you know, being open and honest and, you know, telling it as it is. I don't like it. I didn't like it in the corporate world, where people cover things up and, you know, and don't say, you know, what's actually going on. The project timelines, you know, I worked on projects, the project timelines won't be real. You know, that's just, so, when I look for a joint venture partner, I will look at personality. I will also look at how I'm going to work with them, what if I'm going to do all the work or if we're going to share it, can we work together? I think people that have done courses that are also in this space is the best opportunity, because they understand what it's like.
Yeah.
It's not all rosy, and or it's not always rosy. From projects can go longer and take longer and cost more money, and the market can flatline and take longer to sell or don't get what you want. So they need to understand that. So so that's a great way. I set up a coffee meetup here in Brisbane, purely not from an investor side of view, but from a connecting with people, because it's also quite a lonely, I don't know if what your ladies find, but it's often a lonely game to play, because you work on your own and you're dealing with problems all day. You are the problem solver. So
I completely agree. That's the reason I started my business.
Yes.
Because I was bored and lonely on projects on my own. And so, absolutely. And it's something that we really have been working on the joint venture process for like the last 5 or 6 years, because we know it's such a critical part of the sort of the journey, because nobody comes with everything. But something that we've recently started doing is getting personality profiling into the picture, so that that the person that you're well sort of suited. Now, I don't think it's a foolproof system, but I think it is. If it does anything, it draws people to be aware of how they operate and whether that is going to sort of blend well with the person that they're going into. But I have to say, I always say that if you're going to go into a joint venture, you need to be aware of the fact that at some point in time, you will not like your joint venture partner very much. It's just what happens, because it's, Has that been your experience?
That's what people say about, doing joint ventures with family members. I don't think I would do that. Maybe I would if I had more family. But, you stuck with them forever. And as much as, I've never had a joint venture partner, like I've never had it go badly yet, or we've never had any falling outs, or I completely get what you're saying, that there will be a time that you disagree. No, I'll stop that. I will say that first deal, the lady who was my joint venture partner, so I renovated the house. As I say, I painted the outside of the house, so I was doing all the work. I put all the money in, and the profit was good. Income earner. She did it in her own name. She got taxed. She was like, just wasn't it worth how much she got? I think she got of the profit. She got, I don't know, $35,000 for a paperwork exercise. I'm happy because she paid a lot. And I was like, you just had to perform and get a mortgage,
She could, there are things if she chose to be around that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yes. So I'm friends with her, and she wasn't that interested, and I was like, that's so bizarre. Whereas yeah.
It's interesting, because would you turn down a $35,000 pay rise because of the tax?
No, exactly. So it was very interesting.
So I just want to touch on goals. So one thing that we do is really set our sights on our big goal, and we call it Paris. And it's like you're heading to Paris, but there's going to be a few detours along the way. And so in doing that, we create those milestones the things that we need to do until we get to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And often that can take 2 years, it could take 5 years, you know, depending on what it is that your Paris is. Like some people want to have bought a house for each of their kids and totally replace their income. That takes a while to do. But I'm really curious to know what your Paris is, if you're willing to share, and secondly, whether you're there yet.
So my Paris is so I've actually just set up new goals because my wife starting in actually Paris was to pay for my niece to go to med school. I lost my brother, you know, when she was 4. He died in a car accident. So you know, she's now 25. She'll be 25 in December, and you know, so it was probably 8 years ago. From 12, she said, "I want to be a doctor," and I be like, "Okay." She lives in the resort. You know, she lives at the back of Beyond in Ireland. She lives on the west coast of Ireland, and people were like, "That just doesn't happen." And I was like, I'll be, you know, what my mother was to me. And I was like, you can be whatever you want and you can, you know, do whatever you want. So, yeah, she ended up in med school. She has qualified last June. And I was able to, through development and just, you know, I was able to pay for her education or accommodation in Dublin, which is very expensive. To get her through med school. So she's now a doctor. And last week, she was actually here with me. She's just moved to Perth and she's going to be a doctor in Australia for 2 years. So she'll spend 1 year in Perth. So that was my big why, and why, you know, and she's now an inspiration to so many people because she sees what she now lives. I've kind of inspired her, you know, to live the life that she wants to. And she rented a house on the beach yesterday in Perth, and you know, is living the life that she created for herself, which is what my mum used to always say to me. So, and you know, after that happened, after she graduated last June, I kind of was a bit lost, you know. Well, what's my new thing? You know, what's my new goal? And I do still work, and I still love, you know, I love property. So I don't think I'll ever give it up. But to just create more passive income, we do have, you know, some good passive income, but to create more passive income and to make a difference by solving the NDIS. So people are building now, you know, you do hear of people building NDIS. It's difficult, but not many people are building for robust, which is the people with mental health issues. So that's the problem I'm looking to solve. And so it'll kind of create my passive, because I love traveling. I love traveling in luxury, and you know, to be able to go wherever I want and do whatever I want. And to plan for the future and live somewhere near where Alana will actually do her study, you know, to go and continue her medicine career.
That is really, really inspiring, and congratulations. And yeah, I love your heart. It's and it's lovely to talk to someone who is kicking big goals in their property journey, but also using that money for good. I can tell, like, you haven't spoken about yourself very much in terms of what you want for yourself. So very a servant's heart, I think that's the word. It just reminded me of a little story, because we, as I said, our Paris story is a highlight of the Wonder Women. And last time we got together, she said, I've reached my Paris, but I'm backpacking and I want to go 5-star. And I thought that was so gorgeous. So
my hashtag is holidays and houses. That's probably my interest in life. Because I love travel, and you know, and I love property. So
Yeah.
you do. You
Well,
just
that's
need to.
beautiful.
And I think on that note is don't worry about if it's a selfish goal. Mine is now kind of, I want to just travel in luxury, and yes, I'm going to be doing good because of that.
Yeah.
But that's really what I want now at this time in my life.
Well, listen, you're very inspiring, Maggie. And I want to thank you for your generosity in sharing your story. And we're really delighted to have you at our Micro Development Mastery Day, which is going to be on the 10th of September. So for anyone that's listening, you would like to know more about it, you can find the details on www.sherenovates.com/events. And so there, Maggie will be speaking, and some other renovators who are also embarking on this strategy or are into this strategy. We'll also have accounting, town planning, financing, micro development talks. So lots to learn there. So go to the website to learn more. And I really look forward to hearing more about your projects on the day, Maggie. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the invite. It's great to, I guess, love inspiring people, because we can all do, way more than we think we can when we get out the way of ourselves.
Absolutely.